Hello, School Transportation Nation. Tony Corpin here. We're excited you made it to the podcast. It's brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software, by School Radio, your source for reliable radio communications, and Bluebird. I've got with me Mr. Ryan Gray. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you very much. Always great to be here on The Nation.
Excellent to have you. Well, we got a lot of good topics coming up. I know you're talking with Craig Lips of Guilderland Central School District in New York. Is he the director of transportation there?
Yes, he just started end of February, but he has been around the industry since 2000, worked at several very large contractors. So it's going to be interesting talking to him in a bit.
Nice. And I know we're putting the finishing touches on the July issue that's going to be handed out at STN Expo, where we also reveal the STN 2024 Innovator of the Year Award. It'll be given on stage at the STN Expo Green Bus Summit opening session there on Sunday, July 14th. So we're looking forward to that and revealing the winner very soon. Guys, look out July 1st when the magazine drops. We are pumped. It's a great article. This next issue, Ryan, I mean, I can't tell you how great the content is. There's a lot of maintenance content. We got a great driver wages study. So you guys wondering what you're paying your drivers. This article looks at the entire country in the U.S., looks at by region. We got over 200 respondents talking about the wages. Really interesting stuff, Ryan.
Absolutely. And definitely it's interesting with our survey. So much of our conversations is around culture, and definitely that comes through in this article. But at least in the survey, over 200 folks, as you mentioned, responded and said that pay is the leading cause for the school bus driver shortage. Something that doesn't come as much of a surprise, but I know a lot of folks tried to put a nice little bow on it of trying to solve things. But culture does go a long way. So yeah, we'll check out that article when it drops.
Yeah, I know you were analyzing the difference between union shops and non-union shops too, depending on where people are in the country, rural versus urban versus suburban. So a lot of interesting nuggets in there and findings and observations. So guys, make sure check out that issue when it gets out, stnonline.com. Go to our magazine tab. It's also in that sidebar on the homepage on the right side, or any page you go to the website. We've got the magazines there for you to check out. All right, before we get to some great headlines, we've got a quick message. Hey guys, are reliable radio communications in your school buses important to you? The laws against using cell phones while operating commercial vehicles are in place for the safety and security of both your drivers and your students. Taking that risk comes with a hefty fine, penalties, and even disqualification of the driver's CDL. School Radio specializes in providing wide area, push-to-talk, two-way radio solutions for schools and school transportation that are fully compliant with all hands-free operation laws. They offer a managed service program that includes the device, all services, all maintenance at a fixed monthly budget point. No expensive infrastructure or FCC license is required. Get a demo today by visiting school-radio.com. That's school-radio.com. All right, Ryan, let's talk a little bit about a new Harvard study comparing diesel school buses to electric school buses. What is going on? Harvard is analyzing school buses. What has the world come to?
It's come to a yellow realization, certainly in a lot of respects. We were talking about electric school buses earlier, Green Bus Summit, of course, coming up in a few weeks in Reno. And a lot of the conversation, Tony, with electric school buses is obviously the environment, right? That's why there's this big push to go zero emissions. Now, zero emissions from the tailpipe in operations. We know that creating the electric systems, mining the minerals, that's not zero emissions. nothing really seemingly that you can do that manufactures anything is truly zero emissions. But there's never been a study, to my knowledge, that has looked at the health and environmental benefits of an electric school bus compared to a diesel. That's what this Harvard study is claiming. It was released actually last month on May 20th. It was published by the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, so prestigious publication there. It's the T.H. Chan School of Public Health at Harvard. What they found is deploying one electric school bus to replace one diesel school bus could result in up to $247,000 in climate and health benefits. And they break that down. And again, that's looking at it from in a large city. It could be less in a smaller rural area. But they found that one electric bus could total about $84,000 in total environmental benefits. This also found over $40,000 worth of climate benefits just from the reduced greenhouse gases, again, in large cities. So we're talking about particulate matter 2.5, that ultrafine exhaust, basically, that can really harm children. And they're looking at this in compared to a 2005 diesel school bus. So we know that diesel school buses since 2005 are a lot cleaner. So we got to take this with a grain of salt. But certainly, when you're looking at also coming up with nearly $44,000 in benefits by reducing air pollution, mortality rates in adults, and then childhood asthma. It does paint a picture there that certainly there are benefits to be had. I would like to see a study done now, maybe on a 2010 or newer school bus, maybe a 2015, because we know there's very few of these 2005 diesel buses out there. There are some, but I think it needs to have more of an apples to apples comparison. But again, it's the first study of its kind, and it does point out that it would like to see further research to assess the benefits of reduced exposure of children to in-cabin air pollution as well. I think this is the tip of the iceberg in terms of what the ivory tower is doing in terms of trying to gauge these cost benefits in terms of environmental and health.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, because look, school transportation, those are great benefits, but the function of school transportation is let's get them there safe. Let's get them there efficiently. Let's look at our budgets, because school districts are always asked to do more with less. And this is kind of like, okay, does this make sense? And I think here comes the argument. Does government provide funding based on this study, these research findings, and the continued funding of ESBs happens after the federal program closes off, right? But we both know that it is about politics. It's about regulatory sides of things. Every state is different. Certain people, they love electric. Certain people, they're like, hell no, I will not put electric in my fleet until they force me to, dragging, kicking, and screaming, right? You see it. And then there's everybody in the middle, which is probably the silent majority that's like, look, I'm just trying to get them there and do it in the budget that I've been given. And I don't want it to be too difficult on me and my staff and my maintenance team. I've got a driver shortage, kind of like what we talked about earlier. And look, driver pay matters. And guess what? If I'm a union shop, I can't even change the pay because I'm stuck with what they've given me. But if I'm a non-union shop, I've got maybe more flexibility. If I'm in a public school district, they have tables and things like that of, hey, what you can pay people. There's so many little idiosyncrasies when it comes to school transportation. Bring your whole new power source into your fleet complicates things. Now you have a lot of people that have been pioneering this for quite a long time. Guys up in California, right? The old Tim Shannon, he was there doing it from the beginning, advocating for every fuel source, testing, trying. Twin Rivers Unified School District has been well known and been very at the forefront of all this. And now you look how many electric school buses are being deployed in the last rounds. I mean, these numbers are starting to get pretty significant. Now, in the grand scheme of things, of 500,000 school buses or 450,000, whatever the benchmark number is, that is still a pin drop in the major market, right? So, what is the scalability of this without funding? And we've always been discussing, where does cost play into this? When do we see the cost decrease? And whenever we hear things, costs are increasing. They're not going down. And maybe, there's an offset with volumes increasing, but I don't think the volumes are there yet by any stretch of the imagination. No. And I'm not sure where hyper acceleration takes place, because we're probably still in kind of that first adopter phase. When you really look at like how a product really gets sold, there's all this kind of stages, right? They're really early adopters, you get more into that mature market. We're not even close to maturity yet. It's still in its infancy.
Oh, absolutely. And when you're looking at the number of school buses out there, you said, let's go with 450,000, because I think that's probably a more realistic number than the 500,000 that you see. But you look at the World Resources data, the electric school bus initiative that they have, their data dashboard. As of today, as we're recording it, there's basically less than 3,500 delivered electric school buses nationwide. Now there's over 12,000 that are committed, so they've been awarded or ordered, or it includes those, essentially 3,500 that are on the road, or at least have been delivered and they're out at a district or a bus company. If you take that 12,000 number, that's still 2% of the national fleet. If you look at the 3,500, that's less than 1%. So yes, absolutely. We have a long way to go. And you're absolutely right. We talked about this coming out of ACT Expo in Las Vegas last month. This is all being driven by policymaking. And, a lot of industry is really pushing back. Certainly fleet operators are pushing back. And like you said, there's the folks that have no choice. The folks out in California, those, 8 or 9 or 10 states that follow the California Air Resources Board mandates for the Advanced Clean Trucks rule. They're going to be forced that way as well. New York, we talked to Craig Lipson a little bit. He's going to dive into that a little bit more. He's been a transportation director at a few stops in New York, as well as been, as I mentioned, been at some very large contractors, has worked down in Florida. They're actually getting to electric school buses, but it's a Herculean effort to try and, wrap your head around the technology working with utilities. We've talked about this a lot, where previously maybe some transportation departments, their lone experience was with the electric utility was maybe signing off on the bill, if they even saw it for each month for service. But now they have to get intimately involved with their utilities to figure out how to get power to their location. Can they get enough power to meet their needs? And that's where we see a lot of these implementation plans come in that have become, so popular and needed, because folks need guidance. They need to have some kind of blueprint or game plan to work off of to make decisions. And like you said, this is brand new. So you don't know what you don't know. And that's why training, information, all the different webinars that are out there, certainly the funding as well. I sat in on a webinar last week from the EPA on the new clean and heavy duty grant program that's really highlighting school buses. That's $652 million or whatever it is for more electric school buses. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It just, there is a lot of money out there, both federal and at state levels.
And just a reminder on that, Ryan, that clean and heavy duty school bus program, the grant is due July 25th. So this podcast, when it comes out, it's about 30 days until the due date. So you guys have, about 1 month to get your application in, work with your partners, find your OEMs, your dealers. There's a lot of people that are more than willing to help you get the grant in the pipeline. But this money, it's a one-time hit, right? This is a different program than the Clean School Bus program through the federal government. This was enacted through IRA. So this was kind of like originally, if you guys might remember, electric school buses were supposed to get like $25 billion, and it got like redacted down. And we ended up with $5 billion. But I think this money that ended up in this other bill was kind of like a make good for the money that was given up originally, but they didn't get quite as much. I think the hope was to get a lot more. But as it goes, it hits the cutting room floor and money gets traded around, Ryan.
Absolutely. And you can go to the EPA has the National Clean Heavy Duty Vehicle Grant Program page on its website. You can go there, find it. That has these webinars that they're doing. It has that information you can access, can find out more information. But something that's really stood out to me with this program is when we first heard about this, probably about a year and a half ago, Tony, we were at NSTA midwinter meeting down in San Diego. And Becky Weber, one of their lobbyists, was talking about this, and it was still in Congress being debated. But at that point, it was, if I remember correctly, it was all school bus. There wasn't anything else. And then it turned out, well, we're going to have also refuse, garbage trucks. But now, if you look at it, transit buses on there, other trucks. Now, granted, the money has been allocated, and school bus does get the lion's share. But yes, this is finite money, and it's only around for a little bit. Like you said, July 25th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern is when you have to have all your applications in. So get on it, people.
All right, guys, breaking news on the STN podcast. I just got the text message. Trans Tech Bus out of New York is selling. Ryan, who are they selling to? Any guesses?
I have one.
Who is that, Ryan?
Would it be a very large shuttle bus manufacturer in Indiana?
It definitely could be. Good guess.
Forest River is back in the news. I mean,
ding.
They were here. They obviously they own the Starcraft school bus, or not. I shouldn't say school bus. That used to be the school bus brand, but it's a shuttle bus. They walked away from that with an agreement with Rev Group and Collins Bus. And then now, several months ago, they acquired Collins Bus from Rev Group, and now they've acquired TransTech. So the Type A school bus market is definitely going back into that Forest River hands, a Berkshire Hathaway company, I might add. So interesting developments.
Definitely. We'll get more when the official press release comes out. By the time this records or gets out there, the news will be out, but we'll get more information as it comes. But we're excited. Love breaking news, Ryan. This is fabulous, right?
Breaking news. We better fix it. But that's a little journalism joke. But you head over to stonline.com. You'll definitely be able to read the details on this when this podcast comes out.
Yeah, I think we had an interview, right, with David Wright, who is the general manager over at Forest River, who we knew for years back when they were launching their school bus brand, and then kind of had to step away because of competitive agreements with Rev Group at the time. So it's great to see them getting more active, more, and just acquiring Collins brand. I mean, the ink probably isn't even dry, and they've already gone on and bought another company. Well, there's not that many out there. So the market continues to consolidate, Ryan.
Absolutely. Yep. So, there are a couple other new players in the market, but very small on the electric side. But yes, really, I mean, seeing Collins and TransTech now be in that same brand family of Forest River. I mean, outside of that, in terms of the real big, large, small bus manufacturers, Microbird, of course, up in Canada, and they have that partnership with Bluebird. So definitely seeing consolidation in a lot of respects, and we've talked a lot about it from the school bus contractor standpoint. We've definitely been seeing that, and we've been seeing it elsewhere, of course, across the supply chain.
Yeah, excellent. Now, Ryan, one other thing to bring up before we kind of transition to your interview is, guys, if you missed it, we talked about it a little bit last week. Bluebird had their crash test demonstration that we talked about. It aired on CBS on national news, and it definitely got a lot of reaction out there. So definitely shout out to Bluebird. We appreciate them sponsoring the podcast this week, and want to necessarily recognize their efforts to kind of elevate the conversation with school transportation, safety technology, 3-point belts, airbag technology, crossing control technology, lighting. So really great stuff, Ryan, to have a big OEM out there working on the national level to get the word out and seeing local affiliates pick up this story. So nothing like a crash test demonstration to shock and amaze people of really what the value is of this technology.
Exactly. And what polarizing news. I mean, obviously what made all the headlines and gets all the attention on social media and amongst our readers is the lap shoulder belts coming standard starting this fall, no extra cost to customers. But with all the other safety technology that's a part of this, boy, everybody is just focused on the seat belts. And kind of like electric buses, Tony, you're either for them or against them. There's very little, I think there's probably more middle ground in electric buses than there are with seatbelts on school buses. So certainly, as we talked about last week, it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts the industry, how it impacts the other OEMs, because it tends to be a market where the first come to the trough, all the others follow. It's definitely interesting to see how the next few years unfold in this respect.
Excellent. All right, Ryan, before we get to your interview, we got a quick message. Do you remember a time when you could just cherry pick the best solution to run your school transportation operation? The best routing software may be one company. The best parent app could be another company. Those days are over. TransFinder said the old way of doing business doesn't work for today's busy and burdened school transportation departments. They need one partner, one solution. TransFinder has embraced this approach for years now, building award-winning solutions like Route Finder Plus, the driver app Wayfinder, parent app Stop Finder, and inventory management solution Service Finder. They also have field trip management solutions, Trip Finder, and Viewfinder, which provide critical routing information to other stakeholders in the district. Add to this TransFinder's award-winning hardware and industry's best support and service. You have the ingredients that make up one partner, one solution. It's not just a slogan. It's TransFinder's way of doing business. Learn more by emailing getplus@transfinder.com or calling 800-373-3609. That's 800-373-3609. Remember, one partner, one solution.
All right, Craig Lips, Director of Transportation for Guilderland Central School District in New York. Step on to the School Transportation Nation stage. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
So we were talking a little bit before we started recording. You are a well-traveled man in the industry. We're going to get into your background here in a second. Started as a school bus driver, like a lot of folks in the industry. But first, I want to give our audience a flavor of Guilderland Central School District. You guys are located in Guilderland Center, New York. It's just northwest of Albany. It looks like, obviously, there's an aspect of suburban there, but also some rural. It looks like a lot of outdoor activities. You're in a hamlet. Tell us about the area and your operations.
We're located just west of the capital city of New York, Albany. It's a large school district. We have I say large. It's large here in the capital region. One of the top performing from New York State. We got a high graduation rate, and it's very diverse. Like you said, we got a rural area and we got a suburban area. It's a lot of Albany seems to come into the area. There's some heavy commercial on the east end and very rural on the west end of the district. And of course, the diversity comes with that. It's the roads we travel, the people we transport. We have a little bit of everybody, and they work hard together to succeed.
It looks like a great place to live. There's a lot of hiking and outdoor activities, as I mentioned, rivers and meadows, and a lot of fun stuff to do outdoors. And this time of year is probably a lot easier to do that than in the middle of winter, certainly. But as I mentioned, you started your career as a school bus driver back in 2000. I believe.
Yes,
So we entered the industry right about the same time. I started around 2001. Of course, I've never driven a school bus, but you have, so you've worked at school districts as well as contractors, some very big contractors.
Yes, that's correct. I started out with a small school district in upstate New York, Hudson Falls Central School District, as a school bus driver. And from there, I went on to National Express Durham School Services in Albany. And I was safety manager there in the capital region of upstate New York. And from there, I went on to work for Bernie Bus Service from downstate New York and central New York to Florida.
Okay. And you've overseen, like, I think I saw at Bernie, you were overseeing like 5 locations. So is that 5 different contracts, or?
That was probably about 14 different contracts at 5 locations. Yes, that's correct. And then in Jacksonville, we had one huge contract that was 262 buses, 340 employees. We transported about 20,000 school children. And that was a pretty big undertaking, but we did a very good job down there.
Certainly, yeah. So Jacksonville, Florida. So, like I said, you're a well-traveled man. So now, in terms of having that school bus driver background, do you still drive today? There's obviously a big school bus driver shortage, and I saw, you've just been in this position there at Guilderland for the last couple months, or I think you started at the end of February.
Right.
And I noted that they had, at least at the time, a school bus driver shortage, like a lot of districts. Where do you stand right now with your shortage?
We stay in the same place as everybody else does across the country. We're short drivers. I have not been able to, or I've not been required to drive a lot because we manage our resources carefully. And, it's a team effort. And when you get into a situation like that, you have to sit down with your team to manage your resources. And we have tools in place that help us figure our way out of them pitfalls.
How many drivers do you have on staff now, and how many would you have in a perfect world to be fully staffed? And that includes having the requisite substitutes or additional drivers to cover work outages.
Well, it's tough to answer that question only because I am new here at Guilderland. Just for the last few months. So I would safely say we'd probably need about 90 drivers to transport all of the students ourselves, all of our students ourselves. That's no contracting. We have plenty of vehicles to transport. We're short drivers. So a large number of our kids are transported by contractors, and even the contractors face the same struggles that we do with driver shortage. So it's not easy even then to get service for all of our students. So in the real world, we have about, I'd say 65 drivers on hand, and we need about 90 drivers
Gotcha.
to transport all of our stuff. We do have many routes that are contracted out.
Okay. So, and by contracted out, you're talking yellow school bus?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys use any other vehicles, as we've seen a big rise in these third-party companies, non-school bus, especially for McKinney-Vento, sometimes special needs?
Yeah, no, we stick with the people that are school bus qualified.
Gotcha. So in terms of operating that mixed fleet, really, I know that in some of your past experiences, obviously you were mentioning, you're talking about your school bus contracting background, but I believe in one of your previous stops at the school district, you came in and it looks like you're really into efficiencies, as you were talking about managing your resources, and you were going through and looking at the contracts at a former district. Talk a little bit about the mindset that's needed when you're looking at trying to allocate those resources and look. Obviously, it's always comes down to the bottom line, right? The money, and we know transportation tends to not get as much funding as it should or needs, but
Right.
You still got to get those kids to and from school, and then all the other events that they're partaking in.
Right. Well, when it comes to efficiencies, I worked for contractors, and both contractors, they had great training programs. So I'm grateful to them for those training programs, but it also becomes a way of life when you're managing for them. You have to watch that bottom line. There's no two ways about it, the business that we're in. And it's pretty much the same as school districts. People lose sight of that on the school district side, not to look for the efficiencies, and we have to. I succeeded at my most recent school district before here, Ravenna, Queens, Selkirk. We reduced their transportation budget by 6% for the 24-25 school year by, again, teamwork, using the tools to reduce that contract transportation expense and to maximize our existing resources.
And also, too, in terms of efficiencies, oftentimes it's routing, right? And I know that you've done quite a bit of that in your travels as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's where your efficiencies are. Anywhere the rubber hits the road is where your efficiencies exist. It's just a matter of teamwork and using the right tools to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. And being a former school bus driver yourself, it's good that you've been in that driver's seat. You know what's needed. You've also been in dispatch too.
Yep.
You've been the safety manager. So from a cultural standpoint, I would think that being able to talk that same language of the drivers and know what they go through and being able to put yourself in their shoes, that has to help quite a bit.
Well, and that's the hard part, is putting yourself in the driver's shoes. The face of the industry looks a lot different now than it did 24 years ago, where back then I remember them talking about driver shortage. It's nothing like what we deal with here now, 24 years later. It's tough. And, managing the resources and having the right tools in place to do that is so important. And the other part is teamwork. Your drivers have the solutions. We always turn to our drivers. I had a pretty small office at my previous school district, and we pack them in there, 6-7 drivers, and figure this thing out. And we were able to reduce our contract transportation by over $500,000 a year and take on 9 additional schools with 6 less drivers.
Impressive.
By using the right tools and the right people in place. And we delivered excellent service.
There you go. That's where the rubber truly meets the road. In terms of, you were talking about how things have changed so much over the last 24 years. Certainly one of those biggest changes has been electric school buses. And here you are, I think the second New York Director of Transportation we've talked to in about a month here on the podcast. And of course, the question comes up, the state mandate. Mm-hmm. 2027, all new purchases of school buses need to be zero emissions vis-a-vis electric, because that's what we have available in terms of zero emissions right now in the marketplace. I know, we at STN Expo East a couple of weeks ago in Indianapolis, we had a panel about this topic, or we had a director from the New York City area who was talking about, he heard that maybe there were some things politically, and I know that there have been some things going on politically to try to change that mandate, but as of today, 2027, 2035 is when the fleet needs to be 100% electric. There are some exceptions available. Curious, where do you guys stand right now with electric school buses? And I want to get your thoughts on what needs to happen to get all the districts there. 50,000 school buses in state. I think there's only maybe a few hundred that are electric right now. Right. It's not a lot of time to get this done.
Well, the problem is not just the time, it's the money and the lack of knowledge and experience with these things. I know that there's electric buses all over the place. There's electric vehicles all over the place. It's still a new technology. And when you bring it into the school transportation world or pupil transportation world, it's a new concept. And there's a lot to be learned. We always say we're never going to stop learning, or at least you never should stop learning. This is one of those things that's going to have a huge learning curve. When you look at it on the surface, your dispatch staff practically have to have an engineer's degree just to be able to dispatch buses, let alone the drivers, to figure those out, because the charges, every bus has a different charge, yada, yada, yada. Then the demand from the route for that charge, and then you're dealing with weather. There's so many variables. And I'm not negative about the buses. I'm not against them, because the reality is we do have an environmental issue. But I'm not sure that electric buses is the best solution for, what we're trying to do here. So, but right now that appears to be the only solution that we have to get rid of these fossil fuels that are contributing to the environment.
Speaking about funding, a month or so ago, we had some representatives from NYSERDA, which is the New York State, basically Energy Research Development Authority that oversees a lot of the environmental programs. There is $500 million available there in the state, but as you mentioned, and as I mentioned, 50,000 school buses, do the math. 500 million, it's not going to cut it.
Yeah.
Now, we also have other programs like the EPA Clean School Bus Program. There's the EPA Clean and Heavy Duty Vehicle Grant Program. Curious, are you guys currently going after any of these grants for electric school buses or any other alternative fuels?
We sure are. We've actually got 2 electric buses on order. Our first 2. Listen, we're not against it. We know that something has to happen here, so we're going to start heading in the same direction to make our contribution. But yes, we've taken advantage of the funding that's out there to purchase a school bus with the NYSERDA funding, and there was something in the state budget for it. So our buses we actually bought for next to nothing, starting out. Mm-hmm. And we got the lower grade chargers. We haven't gone with the high grade yet until it's time. Once we really need them, for the 2 buses, we won't. It's our opportunity to start learning about this thing.
Absolutely.
And I think the funding in the end is what's going to make it making it nearly impossible at this moment.
Mm-hmm. So you do have some infrastructure already in place, or you're in the process of doing that? Because something we've talked to a lot of folks about, obviously, is that's a whole new ball game in and of itself, is working with utilities to get the requisite power into your areas. And some areas don't have enough power, and the utilities are saying, we can't support that. There's a lot of programs and a lot of charging companies and whatnot that are working on this. And I actually saw there was a news recently, a mobility house got an award from New York for being able to do just that, provide, charge enough charging power and enough through the chargers, despite utility restrictions or lack of infrastructure. So just curious where you guys are working with your utilities and trying to get that infrastructure set up at your yards.
Guilderland's been about a year into it, working with the local national grid utilities. We're not far from an industrial area, so we're not in horrible shape. There's definitely work that needs to be done here on campus and whatnot to get that electricity in here and distribute it out to the buses. But we're also moving forward with a program with the local BOCES. They contracted with, I believe it's an engineering group, to help us with getting this infrastructure stuff taken care of.
Yeah. And BOCES, Board of Cooperative Educational Services, I believe is in New York. That's your BOCES, kind of regionally help districts.
Yes.
And from a state safety standpoint, you being a former safety manager, looking at the safety of these electric school buses, training is your thing. So wondering also too, training that you're either providing or looking at providing your drivers, your technicians that are going to eventually need to work on these things. I know the OEMs right now are trying to keep everybody's hands off, but a lot of folks in the industry are saying, hey, we need to know this stuff. We can't just wait and expect these warranties are going to eventually wear out.
Yeah.
We need to know what our folks need to do.
Well, absolutely. I've always said training is key to anybody's success. Safety with these things is definitely huge. It's electricity. You're dealing with a large ball of electricity underneath the chassis of that thing. One of the issues that I'm seeing is more fear among the employees when it comes to thinking about and getting ready to learn about these vehicles than anything else. So that's something I've never seen before. I've always heard people say, "Oh, that's a big vehicle. I could never do that." And then they get in there and find out that it's not bad. It's easier to drive than a small car. But here we're dealing with electricity. A lot of people don't know electricity. Again, it's a brand new concept, and you hear so much negative out there. You see stuff on social media with videos with these batteries catching fire and stuff like that. So there's a lot of fear, plus high amounts of electricity. Our mechanics are reluctant to learn how to work on them, but they know that it's coming, and hopefully they stick it out with us and move forward on it. That's another challenge. Shortage of drivers. It's not just drivers. You're short staffed, in all facets of our operations. And it's even difficult to get mechanics these days. And now I think that's going to create a new challenge.
Yeah, well, that's certainly we're trying to do our part with that at our STN Expos, bringing forth those types of opportunities, because really it's people fear change, and you're set to doing one thing and it, and then something else comes along, new technology changes things really quickly, and like you said, there is a lot of fear. Speaking of technology, can you take us through what Guilderland is doing in terms of other technology on the buses or around the buses? We see a lot of, some more common sense technology, LEDs, really, illumination of the school buses, where we've had this crossing or stop arm epidemic in this country. According to folks like NASDIPS, the National Association for State Directors of People Transportation Services, who survey these kind of things. But we're also seeing a lot in passenger or student detection in and around the bus. Take us through what you guys are doing: routing, video, collision mitigation, anything like that you're working on?
A little bit of everything there. When it comes to the stop arm technology, the Albany County partnered up with Bus Patrol, which a lot of people have heard of Bus Patrol, where they issue the summons or the tickets to motorists who pass the reds. We did the same thing here at Guilderland School back in September of last year. They brought in over 3,000 fines, or 3,000 penalties, or 3,000 motorists have been caught since September here in Guilderland Central Schools District since then. And, we keep an eye on it. And the public's becoming aware of it, very aware of it. And in addition to that, the cameras inside and outside the bus all the way around. We also are purchasing buses with the first light safety signs, with the school bus bulkhead light sign being lit up, and we added the stop signs on our buses for the next order. So we'll be well illuminated going forward. We're not doing the retro, not just yet. We'll see how it goes with those next year when they finally come in. And the other technology we just installed, and actually we're going to roll it out next week full scale for the summer anyways, is our transportation management system, which includes routing and covers our safety and compliance piece, also covers our vehicle maintenance piece. We purchased TransFinder routing systems, or routing maintenance systems, and everything else that it does. My whole staff here has, dug their heels in and got their hands wrapped around this thing, because we're trying to make it, come together pretty quick. We had an older system that'd been on the district's network for 29 years, full of patches and Band-Aids from like the early 90s. It needed to come off the server, because, all that software actually leaves a gaping security hole. So we need to get it out of there, to finally secure our systems 100%. So now we're there. And we did it, and we made it happen rather quick. So we're upgrading the GPS in the buses to work with the routing system. It'll improve communications with the parents. It'll also improve our decision making. We're able to focus on the data, the raw data, the actual data, what's really happening out there, because now we're actually able to capture it and keep up with it with the modern routing system. In addition to that, we're able to control our workload. Remember, I mentioned staff shortage. It's not just drivers, it's all levels of staff. We can actually visualize our workload and make decisions from there. Whether it's contracting work out, whether we need to replace an employee, whether we need to find more employees, whether we need to reduce our fleet size, whatever it is, all that information is there, and it's going to be at our fingertips. That's what we used at our previous school district, where we were actually able to, what I explained to you earlier, manage with a reduced staff and a heavier demand, basically.
And saves a lot of money too.
And it saves, and that's it. It saves a lot of money, and there's so much waste that goes out the doors when you're not paying attention to that data. It's wasted dollars, wasted time. And, there's benefits for all in that when you save that time and money. And in addition to that, your service levels, that's the most important part of it. These kids deserve the best education they can get. And their education starts with their school bus ride every morning, and it ends with their school bus ride every afternoon. So if their school bus ride isn't 100%, their education is not 100%. So we need to focus on service delivery, and that's the other piece to it. With the systems in place that we get from TransFinder, we're actually able to monitor and track it, even though we're short-staffed and a lot of us are driving every day. It's there at our fingertips quickly.
Well, Craig, it sounds like you have a great operation there. A lot to still figure out, especially certainly with the electric school buses and your technology rollouts. Wish you a happy and relaxing summer as much as possible. I know that you're probably ramping up for driver training and onboarding and whatnot, and getting all those programs in place for the start of school, because before you know it, those buses will be rolling en masse again. You're probably doing some summer school stuff right now, but it comes quick.
It does.
Well, thank you so much, Craig. Really appreciate it. You have a great summer, like I said, and again, appreciate the information you shared with the nation.
All right. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, Ryan, outstanding conversation with Craig. Really enjoyed it. Guys, if you love this episode, make sure you share with all your friends out there in the school transportation nation. Get it out. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to pods. Don't forget, also appreciate our sponsors, TransFinder, School Radio, and Bluebird. We couldn't do it without them. Definitely go out, tell them you heard about them on the STN podcast. You probably heard about them, but always say, hey, STN podcast. I listen to it all the time. My favorite podcast. Of course it is, right? If you love school buses, you gotta love School Transportation Nation. Right, Ryan?
Absolutely. I love it.
Yeah, see?
Never miss an episode.
That's right. Never. Always listen to them. Make sure we're sounding good, talking about all the best topics, industry trends, breaking news. Always check out stnonline.com for all that great analysis. The new July issue, STN Expo West in Reno, Nevada, July 12th through the 17th. We are so excited to see everybody this summer. The summer conferences are in big swing. It's happening everywhere. We got 4th of July coming up soon. So guys, have a safe, healthy, happy holiday. Enjoy that warm southern weather, and we will see you next week, nation. We love you.